Hello fellow writers, welcome back to Listen I Have an Idea. Today's video is all about motivation. I have 8 awesome tips for you that I really think will help you get inspired and get motivated to write your books. Before we begin, don't forget to comment down below your channel or your blog. Shamelessly promote yourself in the comments down below. I want to see your videos, I want to read your blog, and I want to feature you guys in an upcoming Writer Spotlight video, so go for it. Shamelessly plug yourself down below. Okay, let's get into the video. The first tip of today is something that's been helping me for the past few days, and that is a writing sprint. Essentially, you set a timer for 5 minutes and try to write as many words as you can in that 5 minutes. I find that 2 minutes is a little bit too short, and then 10 minutes is a little bit too long. I find I get kind of lost if I set the timer for a little bit longer. While you're doing these little sprints, I suggest writing down how many words you've completed in those 5 minutes. Start off a little bit slow, and then as you're progressing, write a little bit more and a little bit more, and see if you can continue to beat your last scores. During the 5 minutes, don't check your spelling, don't check the grammar, wait until the very end of the 5 minutes and then kind of go back and fix the spelling mistakes. Tip number 2 is to use social media. Sometimes people don't have any other outside motivation to get them writing, so what I've been doing and what other people have been doing as well is going on Twitter and kind of publicly announcing how many words they want to write and what their goals are for that day. That way you can have other people hold you accountable to your goals. So social media is actually a pretty big tool, and I definitely suggest you try this one out. Number 3, I've already kind of touched on in a previous video, in my previous Writer Spotlight, Riley Marie suggested, and a ton of other people have been suggesting as well, is to find other people who are writing with you. That way you have support from a friend, somebody else who's writing, and you can match your work to theirs. Now, it's not a competition in any means, but it is a goal to write 50,000 words. So if you are writing with a buddy who is beating you, who is meeting those 1,667 word daily goals, and you are not living up to that, it might be fun to have a writing partner, somebody who will keep you on pace. Who knows, maybe you'll find extra motivation from that. Tip number 4 is something that might actually be really hard for some people to do, and it is to not track your word progress. By this, I mean, while you're writing, don't check to see how many words you've written. I tend to get caught up in how many words I've written and set goals for myself after completing a certain amount of words, but if you can hold off on checking your word count, you can potentially stay motivated to end up writing even more than you would have initially. A simple goal for this is to write an entire page before you check your word count. It might be difficult for some, but it might actually be quite helpful. Tip number 5 is to move on if you get stuck. Sometimes writer's block is the absolute worst. You don't know what you're writing, you don't know where you're trying to go with your current work. So just move on, push past that, leave that behind, work on something else that is not the writing that was causing you that writer's block. Sometimes that work actually might fit in really well with the rest of your novel. So move on, don't stay stuck. Keep on working towards your goal. Tip number 6 comes from a website that is linked down below. It is How to Motivate Yourself as a Writer. And it is to read a really bad book. By reading a really bad book, you motivate yourself to want to do better, to achieve better, to write better than that book was. On the opposite end of the spectrum, read a really good book and aspire to be as good, if not better, than that book and that author was. By having these two comparisons, you know pretty much exactly where you want your book to end up, how well you want it to be written, how you want the reader to feel as they're reading it. By reading the bad book, you know what not to do and how to improve in your novel. By reading the good book, you might get some inspiration from that. Number 7 is to use scare tactics. Now, this one, I don't really know how well it works for fiction writers, but as a former student, scare tactics were, if you don't finish an essay, you're gonna fail. You're gonna fail that class, probably having to repeat the course. And that was inspiration enough to finish the essay on time. In fiction writing, the only kind of scare tactic that you have for NaNoWriMo is to finish up the 50,000 words before the month is over. There really is no proper punishment that you're gonna get for not completing it, but if you hold yourself accountable, that kind of is the scare tactic. An example of this is if you don't write your 1,667 words that day, the next day, maybe you don't watch YouTube, or you're not allowed to watch Netflix, or you need to make up those words before you can do anything else. Set yourself little tiny goals and try to achieve them. Tip number 8 is a quote that I found on Pinterest. I have been posting more on my Pinterest board. It is linked down below if you want to go check it out. It's all about NaNoWriMo. Tips, tricks, helpful links, It's all there. This next tip is something that I found on Pinterest, and as soon as I read it, I felt so inspired, and it is the quote, "You are going to be someone's favorite author." How inspiring is that? You can write a book from absolutely nothing. It can be inspired by a single idea. You can make it come to life with your words, with all of your hard work, and then once it gets published and it gets out there and people read it, it is going to be somebody's favorite book, and you're going to become their favorite author. I think that's amazing, and that is exactly the type of motivation that during the dark days when you're not sure what you're writing, you have a little bit of writer's block, that's exactly what you might need to pick yourself up and to continue writing. So those are my 8 tips for motivation today. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Again, shamelessly plug yourself in the comments down below. I want to see your vlogs, I want to read your blog, and any tips and tricks you have for other people writing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow. Happy writing!